Suresh was looking quite vibrant, his thick black hair sticking out even wilder than last time. He kissed me on the forehead, his eyes dark and longing. "It's good to come out for a bit." "I was trapped in a building the whole day," he said. "You were working?" I asked. "Yes, at this insurance company. I'm not actually fond of the job, but it pays for my student apartment, and I got a pay raise today, which is great because I didn't really put any effort into the job." "Maybe you're my lucky charm," he said, and gave me a quick glance. "Aw." Between the concrete buildings along the Highline Park, single train tracks were emerging as if we were in a computer game and the screen was just loading the pixels of the path directly ahead of us. Was this the right time to unload all of the details of my plan onto Suresh? Who could be expected to become involved in something like this? An entanglement of conspiracies and suspicions. "Hello? Are you okay?" Suresh's face shifted into my field of vision. "Yes, why shouldn't I be?" I asked. "I don't know, you're being so quiet," he said and scratched his chin. "Actually, I wanted to ask you about your childhood," I said. "You said that your relationship with your father was strained?" Maybe that was a way to lead up to the topic. "Ah, you want to get right in with a blast from the past?" "Difficult territory you're treading there, madam, but if you insist," he said. "Well, yes, my relationship with my dad has always been difficult, at least after the accident I told you about." He stared intently straight ahead as if he had to remember something. "Did you ever feel abandoned by your dad?" I asked. "Not abandoned, no, but he was always sort of distant. Although I never got into mischief apart from falling down the stairs," he said. "But that was an accident," I said. "Yes, but somehow I think that my dad assumed that I did it on purpose. That, or he was just angry that I put him through so much stress. But sometimes, I feel like I've forgotten large chunks of my childhood." He closed his eyes for a moment. I thought of my own father, and of the odd fragments of childhood I still carried like unfinished puzzles. I think fathers, more than mothers, expect that their child will grow up and bloom effortlessly without them having to invest too much energy, kind of like a cactus. "At least, that's how I felt as a child," I said. "Oh yeah, I remember. You said you and your dad aren't in contact right now?" Suresh asked. He had opened his eyes again. "Yeah, we haven't seen each other for like 5 years, I replied. "That is sad." "Why?" he asked. I did not return Suresh's gaze. "It's a long story. Initially, I thought that he just didn't care about me anymore, but now I'm not so sure. I think something might have happened to him," I said. "Really?" "What do you think happened?" he asked. "Alien abduction. Government conspiracy," it flashed through my mind. I had already thought everything through. It's hard to say. Maybe some sort of an accident?" I said. "But if something had happened, wouldn't there have been an investigation and you would have been informed?" "I'm just thinking practically. You know me," Suresh said. "Not if the officials had an interest in covering it up," I thought. I'm not sure. You know, he was entangled in—" I took a deep breath. The moment of truth. "Some government projects," I said. "Oh, wow. You know, I met up with you to have some nice chill-out time, and now it seems I'm knee-deep in some official conspiracy," Suresh grinned. I looked around me. Bushes and weeds sprawled between the train tracks, looking dusty and crooked from too many New York seasons. If I waited any longer to deal with my dad's vanishing, the few trails I had would also be covered with vegetation. Suresh still had an amused smile hanging on his lips. "Actually, I'm quite interested in conspiracies. I think they appeal to my adventurous side," he said. "Really? Not all of your sides are practical?" I asked. "Yes, madam," he puffed himself up jokingly. "So, do you have any clues as to where your dad might be?" "Anything to begin with?" he asked. I told him how I'd contacted my great-grandmother, the only person from my father's old hometown still reachable. She only ever replied with I-Ching quotes and ramblings about treasures she'd found. "So, no real leads," I said. Any idea what to do next?" he asked. "I really don't know. Maybe look for a PI?" I chuckled nervously. Why bother looking if you already have one standing in front of you? He raised his chin. I giggled. What, you? I asked. Yes, madam, at your service. He half-turned towards me. I mean, I don't have any special skills apart from my ability to ask obnoxious questions and some half-baked IT knowledge, but I will support you. Plus, I'm free, he said. You're so sweet, I said. Cautiously, I brushed his hand with my hand and he took it. Warmth flooded through me. The path was winding upwards in a circular motion. We were blindly following it, drawing ever tighter spirals. Up on the hill, the sun started to go down. New York was spinning.
Lai Fang's diary, New York. After my fateful encounter in Chongqing, I spent the next few years of my life in Suzhou at the Institute of Cadre Management, a school for spies. Without really knowing what was waiting there for me, my parents were glad to send me there. Zhejiang was a wealthy province, and they were happy to see me provided for. Back then, the Institute still had a department for psychic espionage, which taught gifted children remote viewing, how to read letters without opening them, and how to temporarily disable your opponent with telekinesis. Usually, the Institute did not admit children, but adult graduates from different universities in the country who displayed certain talents. With the Department of Psychic Espionage, it was different. The instructors knew that psychic abilities mainly showed in children under the age of 7 or 8. Afterwards, and if no appropriate measures were taken, public education would just gloss over hidden talents until they were forgotten or strangled by the harsh straps of Confucianism. So, these children had to be trained from a very early age. The Institute's staff had to actively look for them, as parents would not brag openly about these children for fear of becoming outcasts in the community. Even the fact that such an institute existed was a bit odd for the Chinese government. Normally, they did not actively recruit spies, but discreetly told tourists or students who went overseas to look out for the one or other thing to help with China's modernization. This was called the 1,000 grains of sand method. Every single person picked up a tiny piece of the puzzle. Those who had a piece of the frame were still the luckiest. They knew at least the corner marks of the whole picture. It was tougher for those who had a middle piece, maybe right in the center of a dark forest in the background. I still have vivid memories of the Institute of Cadre Management. The entry gate gave the impression of a Buddhist temple with lion statues right next to the gates. The trees right behind the outer walls were so full of oleander blossoms that their upper branches lay down exhausted on top of the walls. I had seldom seen these in Chongqing, where everything was so densely populated that you could only fit a few domesticated trees in now and then. The smell of the bold, fiery oleander blossoms hit me like a wave when I went through the Institute's entry gates for the first time. It was the smell of a new stage in my life, the smell of a new chapter in the history of China. It was the end of Mao's Cultural Revolution and the beginning of the Chinese infiltration of the West.
Suresh, sitting next to me on the couch, handed me a flat black box and a long roll of paper. I got you something, he said, displaying his slightly sly smile. I unrolled the roll of paper. A world map. Since we talked about looking for your dad, I figured that this would be useful, or at least a good symbol, to keep your eyes on the prize, so to speak, he said. Oh, cool. You really didn't have to do this, you know, I said. I lifted the lid of the flat black box. Inside was a round metal plate with engraved Chinese characters. A Luopan, just like the one my dad had always been consulting. Wow, thank you, I said and flung my arms around his neck. I can't even remember that I mentioned this. Yes, you did, mademoiselle. I can't really figure out what most of the stuff on there means, though, he said. He detached himself from me and eyed the metal disc. Looks sort of like an ancient radar device to me. Actually, it's meant to be some kind of compass, I said. It is very important in feng shui and includes the traditional directions and star constellations. I have to look up how to read it. Most of the signs on the Luopan were so small that I had to get really close to see them. My pleasure. I also brought some takeaway. His smile widened into a grin. Wow, this day just keeps getting better and better, I said. It just got a bit better for me, too. Had a pretty shitty day at work, Suresh said. Why? What happened? I asked. They were not really happy with my work on the latest project, I guess. I just don't care about marketing. That department will be replaced by AI soon anyway, he said. Ugh, AI. I recently heard that they are creating kind of a super memory space where you will no longer be able to identify which memories are yours. Though, I guess there's not much to get from me, I giggled. If this happens and everyone shares everyone else's memories, I guess that will be the end of my search if I haven't found my dad by then, I said. Or, Suresh said, someone will stumble upon your memory of trying to find your dad and decide to look for him themselves. Maybe even set up an AI special investigators group or something. Now that would be very helpful. Except maybe certain opponents could also stumble upon this whole thing and try to sabotage it, which could result in some kind of AI memory war, I said. I enjoyed speculating with Suresh. Sounds exciting. Are there any opponents you know? Suresh asked. Well, my dad was part of a Chinese special investigations team later on in his life. They sent him to the US. That's how I ended up here. So he might have made himself some enemies, but he never told me about this, I said. So, your dad was a spy. Seems like you have led an incredible life, he said. I had never thought of my life as a glamorous one. When my dad and I had arrived in New York, I had barely been 5 years old. We had lived in a cold, expensive apartment. The only people ever coming by were the cleaning lady and, from time to time, a guy who delivered Chinese food from my dad's home province, Sichuan, which he missed so much. I went to the cupboard to pour myself a glass of wine. You want some too? I asked. Suresh turned to me. I wouldn't want you to witness the effect it has on Mr. Socio. You know he's not used to a lot of drinking. Mr. Socio? Wasn't that the one who had a thing for me? I asked. Yes, Suresh said. He stood up, came closer, and put his hands on my shoulders like you would do with a little child. But I think that he has convinced the others too, he said. He bent down to me, and we melted into a long kiss. A bit later, we sat on the couch, munching our takeaway. I've got something else for you, Suresh said. He took a small bottle out of the pocket of his black woolen coat that hung next to the couch. My eyes widened. Now, don't laugh. I know this might sound ridiculous, but you know that I'm kind of into chemistry, and so this came to mind. Lysergic acid diethylamide, he said. You are speaking in strange tongues, I said. Forgive me. LSD, he said. You, what? I asked. Don't freak out. I'll explain, I said. He shifted, rolling up the sleeves of his blue and black striped sweater. I also have this friend who's studying chemistry. He said that psychedelic drugs work wonders with suppressed memories, he said. I wasn't angry at all that Suresh had disclosed this information to a friend of his. Quite the opposite. My stomach warmed at the thought of him consulting others. That I was also in his thoughts when he spoke to others. Before I could even get a word in edgewise, he continued. Now, I know that you are not entirely sure how your memory loss happened, but if your memories are repressed, there's a good chance that they'd resurface with the help of an appropriate dose, he said. How did you even get your hands on that? I asked and reached for the bottle. It all happened too fast for me somehow. My friend had some on him. Ordered it via the dark web, he said. 1,000 questions were rushing through my brain simultaneously. I didn't even know which one to grab and pose. I had some blurry memories of movies where people took LSD and were never the same afterwards. Isn't this stuff highly addictive? I asked. Common urban myth. In fact, most people, after they take it for the first time, don't have the urge to try it again for some time. A few may even never try it again. Also, your body builds up a certain tolerance, so you cannot have infinite trip, he said. Sounded like he'd done his research. I weighed the little bulgy bottle in my hand. Wait, that sounds like... Did you try it? I asked. Suresh gave another sly smile. Now, if Mr. Socio doesn't even respond well to alcohol, how do you think he would respond to LSD? He asked. Oh, of course, I said and grinned. Though Mr. Juggler would certainly enjoy it. I sense that he is the one who has to run the whole show. He deserves a bit of fun. I leaned over to Suresh and pinched his cheek. Yes, but I fear Mr. Socio might just push the others away and take the wheel. He's that kind of guy, Suresh said. His eyes did not look directly into mine, but had lost themselves somewhere between my nose and my lips again. And your friend? Did he try it? I asked. I don't think so, he said, and took his eyes off me. You could do some research if you don't trust me. Yes, I said, and weighed the bottle in my hand. I think this is what I'll do. I glanced over at him. He had his head lowered. I smiled at him. It's not that I don't trust you. I just want to be on the safe side, I said. Sure, you should do as you see fit, so you feel 100% comfortable when you take it. That's an important prerequisite, he said. I stared at the bottle in my hand, but through the brown glass you could only see a few bubbles hanging from the pipette, little beads of possibilities. Next morning, the lofty feeling had gone away and gravity was starting to press down on me again. I looked at my impression in the hallway mirror and noticed a little, almond-shaped bruise on my neck. I turned off my phone and lay down on my unmade bed. I had gotten almost no sleep last night. Every time I had woken up from my light sleep, Suresh seemed to be awake as well. Nothing had been spoken, but something in his face, the position of his limbs, had conveyed that he was not fully gone. Maybe it had been this alertness that had not let me go to sleep, like a lighthouse outside a window that kept checking in on the inhabitants with its red flashes. I liked the feeling that he was watching over me, but I was frustrated that nothing had come out of our initial search in the online databases. We had tried some nationwide and some New York databases, but Lai Fang remained a specter. Would have been far too easy anyway. The universe didn't give away answers just like that. And how is the new one? Izzy asked. She was already standing next to my chair while I slowly got up and shouldered my bag. These memory therapy group sessions were so exhausting. Almost every time there was some older woman with Alzheimer's who had been assigned to the group by mistake and was blabbing on about how their long-dead cat was just like their husband or something. Why do you think there's a new one? I asked. Oh, come on. I saw you staring out of the window earlier with that look on your face. There's something going on, she said and nudged me. Okay. I've been dating this Indian guy. He's cute. Great sense of humor, I said. Ah, India. You don't leave out any country, do you? She teased me. She grabbed my arm. The bag was almost slipping off my shoulder again, and dragged me towards the door, out into the New York afternoon, and into our post-therapy coffee shop. Show me, Izzy said, her coffee-colored eyes wide open. Show you what? I asked. The guy, Izzy said impatiently. All right, wait a moment, I said, took out my phone and searched through my photos. There was one I had taken of him during the cold-to-warm train trip with big, grinning teeth and slightly devious eyes behind his rimless rectangle glasses. He kind of looks like the Indian version of Jim Carrey. When he was young, of course, not the dried-out husk with the piercing eyes he is now, she said. If you think so. Anyway, he's very sweet. Yesterday he took me to the roof to see the stars, I said. I couldn't help but smile. Even if we had to use an app because, New York. It had been a long time since I had looked into a starry sky. When I was young, my dad had always taken me out to see the stars, showing me the Dipper and the Ursa Major, a bundle of stars the shape of a huge hand with a finger that pointed out the seasons in the sky. He had relied on the stars for guidance in his life. Corny, Izzy said and took a sip of her coffee. Well, it's the nicest thing anyone's done for me in a while, I said. That you can remember, she said. That I can remember, I echoed. Suresh actually had had trouble remembering the star constellations, so I had pointed out some to him. He had lowered his eyes in this cute way, like he always did when he was embarrassed. He is so unlike other guys I have met. He really cares about me, and there's no X's in the background, no second options, I said. Okay, you have to introduce us sometime. I'm really curious about what such a perfect man would be like, Izzy sighed. Maybe I have to go for Indian guys. They really seem to put their back into a relationship, she said. Have you met another guy on one of your flights again? I asked. No one that would be worth mentioning. I mean, let's be honest. Meeting on a flight is not a good basis for a relationship. The service-customer dynamic will always be present. Although, An above-average number of men seem to develop crushes on flight attendants and vice versa. We have a special code for letting our colleagues know if we find someone hot. So we might pour out the orange juice and say like, maybe I'll fly to Israel in about 14 days. Meaning that they should check out the guy in seat I-14, she said. Wow, this sounds like spy talk. At least, that's how I imagine it, I said. Might be. Izzy suddenly seemed to be somewhere else entirely. She looked at her watch. Sorry, gotta run, she said, and got up. And gone she was, always on the run, though she didn't have any memories that were chasing her.